Oh, prayers for our brothers and sisters in Jamaica. Oh, they got wallops. All of them, the Bahamas, Cuba, everybody. Thoughts and prayers. Hang in there. Is the government still shut down? It's October 30th, 2025. If the government's still shut down, it's official. Pro-rated taxes.
Is this a real life? Is this just fantasy? Caught in a landslide, no escape from reality. Open your eyes, look up to the skies and see. I'm just a poor boy, I need no sympathy, cause I'm easy come, easy go.
Oh, they need no sympathy. They need no sympathy in Jamaica. Send the money. Send the money from the tax credit you're going to get from prorated taxes for 2025. I mean, come on, think about it. Would you pay full price if an airline got you 90% of the way to Turks and Caicos for your honeymoon? They said, can you get the rest of the way on your own? Would you pay full price if the doctor delivered 90% of the baby? Just left the feed in there, said, hey, come back next month, I'll pull her out the rest of the way. I mean, this is getting to be a little bit doggone rootin' tootin' ridiculous, don't you think? Welcome to the Comparison Guy podcast. Follow me on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, YouTube. As far as I know, the government's still shut down. And let me just say something to you. And I wasn't going to start the show off with this. I don't want to get distracted. I'm going to talk about the shutdown a little bit later. But something occurred to me. This feels like, or it would feel like, a classic superhero versus villain story. With the whole SNAP, what's going on with SNAP, what's going on with the federal workers, will the federal workers get paid, will they not get paid, will the SNAP benefits go out, will they not go out? This feels like a superhero versus the villain, where the superhero has got the villain cornered on top of the roof, and the villain grabs a lady, and says, I'm going to throw her off the roof, and then you're going to have to go swoop down and save her, which will then allow me to get away. So you got to make a choice, superhero. Do you save her and let me get away, or do you capture me? It would be that classic case if it wasn't for the fact that the superhero, Wonder Woman, doesn't spend all her time trying to get on Instagram and get reelected. So while I do think people do care about what's going to happen to people if they don't get their SNAP benefits or about federal workers getting paid, I'm a little skeptical sometimes of their strategy if that is their concern. Because the strategy may have been not to put people through this in the first place. Now, as far as the villain goes, I mean, like I said, this would be classic villain superhero if it wasn't for the fact that I've been saying this from the time Donald Trump came along. This is his strategy to a T. You have to understand it. What have I said about Donald Trump? Donald Trump comes in, he takes a bad situation, he makes it worse, and then he takes it back to bad, and he goes, you're welcome, America. I fixed that for you. And so think about it. The thing that Republicans hate the most about Obamacare now is that it's called Obamacare. The Obamacare subsidies. They don't like that. So if they let these subsidies expire, they can then say, okay, Democrats, let's sit down and talk about extending subsidies. Now, they're no longer Obamacare subsidies. Now, they put together a package that has their name on it. Has Trump's name on it. You follow what I'm saying? They don't care if they expire. They don't care if it all expires. They can just redo it and then put their name on it. Now it's something new. What do you think? People don't fall for that stuff? Trump did it with a VA bill. He did it with a VA bill. I think Obama had passed a bill. He passed some kind of bill to allow veterans to go to any hospital. Go to any hospital and get treatment. Donald Trump came in and just basically took an eraser and erased Obama's name off and put his name on it and said, that was my bill. So this is what he does. This is what the Republicans want to do. It's true. They don't care all that much whether or not people have coverage, but if they do, they at least want to get credit for it. And right now, they get no credit. They get no credit for these bills, for these subsidies, for the health care, for Obamacare. So that's the goal to me. Let it expire, redo it, get credit for it, put your name on it. Then turn around and say, you're welcome, America. Bad to worse, back to bad. I don't know, just something that occurred to me watching that 4-screen view on TV. I can watch CNBC, MSNBC, Fox News, and CNN all at the same time. It's awesome. I love it. I will admit, I will occasionally switch out one of those channels for the TV show Charmed because, you know, Alyssa Milano, right? Va-va-va-voom. You understand what I'm saying? But I can watch it. I enjoy it. It allows me to catch a lot of things on a lot of other networks that I would normally miss. This morning, for instance, I never would have seen it because I probably wouldn't have been watching the channel at the time. They had Andrew Yang on, and he was talking about the New York mayor's race, and he was talking about this new company he started called, what did he say it was? It's called Noble Mobile. That's it, Noble Mobile, where apparently he will actually give you money to put down your phone, to not look at your phone, okay? That's the premise. They didn't talk about it long, and I probably should have looked it up before I started coming on here to talk about it, but I got to live my life. I didn't have time. But Noble Mobile, they will pay you, his company will pay you to not look at your phone. It's his idea to improve the civility in this country with the premise that if people aren't on their phone as much, if they're engaging with one another, things will get better. Okay. Now listen to me. I have no doubt that Andrew Yang is smarter than me, but my initial take on it is the problem isn't just people looking at their phones too much. It's what people are looking at on their phones. With all due humility from my point of view, because like I said, I don't want to always come on here trying to sound like I know all the answers. But I once again suggest to these smart, highly educated, sophisticated folks, the problem in the country is people cannot conceive of walking an inch in someone else's moccasins, much less a mile. People simply cannot conceive of putting themselves and saying things from another person's point of view. A Trump supporter understands about as much about a non-Trump supporter as an American understands a North Korean. And vice versa. It's like no information gets in, no information gets out, other than what the regime wants. The regime being people trying to monetize social media. The people who own the social media platforms, the tech millionaires and billionaires, and the people who use the social media platforms to try and get rich or to try and make a living. That's the regime. And nothing gets in, nothing gets out that they don't want. They control the narrative, not the algorithm. I'm very sorry to tell you that, not the algorithm. I've said it a million times. I'll keep on saying it. We are our own algorithm. Just like people who remember when they were radio stations in your car, when that's all you had was radio stations in your car, what did you do? You preset your radio stations. You went, okay, I'll start with classic rock. I like classic rock. Then I like a little smooth R&B. Then I like contemporary soft music. Then I like pop music. And I like a little sports talk. And you set what you liked. And when one radio station went to commercial, you jumped to the other. When one radio station had a song on you didn't like, you jumped to the other. That's the same way we consume information. That's the exact way we consume information. You say, well, what about all those channels in between? Well, I don't like any of those channels in between, so I don't listen to them. That's what we do. The problem is not looking at the phone or looking at the phone too much. It's what we look at on the phone. With all due respect to Andrew Yang. I wish him luck with his venture. Like I said, maybe he knows better than I do. I wish him luck, but I just don't know that paying people to not look at their phone is the solution. Yeah, you know what? What the heck? I'm on a roll. I'll tell you what else the problem is. The problem, once again, with social media that we all should know by now, the people on social media who want to monetize social media want to elicit an emotional reaction. Fear, anger, disgust, joy, whatever it is, whatever emotional reaction they want to get from you, because an emotional reaction generally causes you to react in a way. It's a provocation to a reaction. That's what they want. They want a reaction. They want you to share. They want you to follow. They want you to retweet. They want you to like. Whatever that reaction is they want to elicit the emotional reaction to get it. Here's the problem. We should be happy over good news and sad over bad news. Things that used to be universally good news or universally bad news. But when it comes to politics today, the political opposition, the other side, people are happy and thrilled when they get bad news, even if it's bad news for them, for the people who are happy about it. And they get sad when their opposition gets good news, even if it's good news for them. Think about it. Think back to when Trump's tariffs started. Back, I think it was in March of this year. The stock market just tanked. Just absolutely tanked. And people, ha, stupid Trump people. Ha, stupid Trump. Kamala was out there. I told you so. I tried to tell you. I told you so. People's 401ks have been wiped out. The global economy is tanked. And people were happy. They didn't say, oh, I'm happy, but you could tell. Yeah, people were happy about that bad news. But at some point, you would expect them to have said, hey, wait a minute. I'm in the global economy. Wait a second. I have a 401k. What the heck am I so happy about? And now, hey, look, we got our problems, but in terms of the stock market, now we've got a record-setting stock market. And what you get from people is not happiness. They're kind of upset. They're kind of angry. They're kind of sad about it. They'll immediately go, oh, that's all AI. No credit to Donald Trump for that. That's all AI. That's the reason why the stock market is setting records, because of AI. And there's not a mention of anyone's 401ks in certain corners of the media. The media couldn't stop talking about people's 401ks and how much had been wiped out when the tariffs started and the stock market plummeted. But now, if they talk about the stock market at all, they don't reference people's 401ks. And look, comparison group, we're all smart enough here to know it flips back and forth. It's all vice versa. It goes back and forth. Both sides do the exact same thing. When Joe Biden was in office and his stock market set a record, nobody on the right wanted to give him credit for it. The left wanted to applaud it and give Joe Biden the credit, but the right certainly didn't. So we know, yes, I don't have to beat that dead horse. It just goes back and forth. Both sides do it. But that's a problem. I mean, that's a serious, serious problem. When people are getting happy if the opponent has bad news and sad or upset if the opponent has good news, that's a problem. That's a real problem, especially when, like I said, that bad news or good news could have an effect on them. I can't imagine who could possibly be cheering federal workers being out of work. I can't imagine who could be happy with that. What good do you think that's going to come to for you? There's no good in that. Federal workers being out of work. I hear people out there, oh, essential federal workers, there's no such thing. Oh, no, there's a such thing as an essential federal worker. You'll figure that out the first time a finger falls out of your box of cereal flakes. Oh, there's essential federal workers, all right. There's people we need on the job, that's for sure. So it's just crazy to not want workers, the government workers, to get back to work. The ratio of good info to bad information it's 1,000,000 to 1. It's 1,000,000 to 1. So I would suggest to people like Andrew Yang, improve that ratio first. Incentivize people to put out good information, like the Comparison Guy podcast. I plod along doing this, not making any money at it, because I enjoy it. It's fun. Sometimes it's not, but for the most part, it's fun. I have the time to do it. It's not taxing for me to do it. And I've gotten just enough positive feedback to keep me doing it, to keep me at it. And enough of belief that, I don't know, maybe in some way it could help one day. Enough people will hear it. And what I'm saying makes sense. I have confidence in that, or I wouldn't be saying it. And maybe one day it'll help. I I have that belief still. But there are a lot of people out there who don't have the time, who don't have even the little bit of money that it takes to invest in the equipment or whatever you need to do podcasting, that have a lot to say, that have a lot of good things to say that could be helpful from their perspective, from their experience. But they're not going to do it for free. Like me, I don't mind doing it for free. But if somebody's going to do it, generally they want to do it to try and make money doing it. So it wouldn't take a lot, if Andrew Yang is trying to give people money, it wouldn't take a lot to incentivize more people to put out helpful information from their perspective, with their backgrounds, with their experiences, that could give us a better understanding of one another. Does that make any sense? Let me try and clean that up. Let me try and explain it this way. Andrew Yang wants to pay people to put down their phones. I say, no, Andrew Yang, don't pay people to put down their phones. Pay people to go to podcasting or go to TikTok, even though I'm not a huge fan of trying to convey information on TikTok, but okay. Go to YouTube and put out information that they see is helpful. Now, you'll have to filter out a ton of it, but within that information, we can get a better understanding of one another. We can find voices that will give us a better understanding of one another, which is what Andrew Yang is looking for us to engage more with one another so we understand one another better. I say that's a tough one. That always goes wrong. So rather than having people have to engage with one another face to face or engage with one another at some kind of party he wants to have or whatever, some kind of group meeting, have people listen to people who are helpful, to people who are incentivized to put out helpful information. No one right now is incentivized to put out helpful information. No one. Because it doesn't go anywhere. Trust me, I know. Look how many subscribers I got. It doesn't go anywhere. And so people give up because there's no growth. There's no success. There's no monetization. So people give up. But what if there was? What if people didn't give up and people kept going and people kept putting out that good information? Who knows? Who knows? Once people are incentivized to put that good information out there, I think people will find it. I think people will be incentivized to find it. Yes, I do. Just like I dream of one day, people will be incentivized to find this show somehow. Very difficult to do amongst a billion podcasts out there. But I dream that one day something will happen. People will discover the show and people will listen to the show. And I think there are people out there, plenty of people out there, who if you tell them this particular podcast or YouTube channel or social media, whatever, is not about eliciting anger or resentment or fear. It's about eliciting logic, open-mindedness, rational thinking, critical thinking. Oh, I think people will listen. Is open-mindedness, is that a word? I think people will listen. We can argue, nothing wrong with that. We can disagree, nothing wrong with that. We just got to know what the heck we're arguing about. We got to know what we're arguing about. We got to start there. The shutdown, for instance. Let me change gears. The shutdown. I come from an understanding and belief, no matter if it's a Republican, no matter if it's the Democrats, no matter what side I personally support, the party that wins the election and controls Congress and the presidency has the right to set the agenda. That's what I believe. If one party controls the White House and the other party controls Congress, the president still sets the agenda. He just has to fight it out with Congress over that agenda. Now, if one party has the White House, has the House, has the Senate, they control the agenda. They set the agenda. That's what I believe. The opposition has the right to challenge the agenda. Challenge the agenda reasonably and fairly. The case can be made against the agenda to cut the size of government. The case can be made against the agenda to deport people in the country illegally. The case can be made against the agenda to shut down agencies of government or cut healthcare subsidies. Whatever the agenda, the opposing side can fight against it and they can run against it in the next election. Point out why that agenda was wrong and win in the next election. And when they do, they are going to expect to have the right to pass their agenda or put forth their agenda. That's just the way it works. That's just the way I see it. Now, if the opposing side feels the agenda has become so destructive, they have no other choice but to filibuster a continuing resolution resulting in a government shutdown, then that's the side that shut down the government. The side that does that. How are we even having an argument about that? How can anyone even argue that? The side that filibusters, in other words, doesn't allow passage on a simple majority of a continuing resolution, knowing it's going to result in a shutdown, that's the party that's responsible for the shutdown. That's not to say whether they were right or wrong, or the reason for why they're doing it is right or wrong, but that's just how it is. That's the way it works. We can't, whatever. So let's talk justified, all right? If we're willing to concede on that, on why the government shut down, who shut the government down, let's talk about whether or not we believe it's justified. I'm cursed with information here, cursed with information. All we hear is sound bites. So let's try and understand exactly what's going on. I talked about it a couple of episodes ago in a show I did on the shutdown, but let's talk about it just a little bit more, and I'll play a couple clips for you here. The Democrats want to extend certain Obamacare and healthcare subsidies, right? That's the crux of the fight. They want to extend these subsidies that are set to expire at the end of the year. The result will be a spike in premiums for millions of people, right? So what are the subsidies? Where do they come from? Who pays for them? Why are they expiring? How long do Democrats want to extend them for this time? Let's get some answers to some of these questions. Let's listen to this audio version of an article from The Hill, okay? Listen to this.
Congress is barreling toward a critical deadline for extending the enhanced Obamacare subsidies at the heart of the government shutdown, and it may already be too late to shield the public from sticker shock with open enrollment window shopping underway. If somehow there is a deal done ahead of November 1st, which looks unlikely, states and the federal government may still have time to incorporate the enhanced subsidies into their prices. I would strongly say if there is going to be a big policy conversation about marketplace affordability, it is too late to do that for 2026 coverage, and it should be done for 2027 coverage, Altman said.
So let's stop there for a minute. This Altman is the executive director of Covered California, the Obamacare exchange for California. She's saying, hey, look, this is done. This is a done deal at this point. It's too late for administrators to incorporate whatever pricing would be if Congress somehow decides to do its job in the next 2 days. They can't all of a sudden throw together new pricing. They got to know they had to know what the pricing is months ago, probably. So this is kind of a done deal. So it begs the question, why the heck is the government still shut down? When the administrators of the exchanges are basically all saying, you know what? We need to start looking at 2027. The prices are pretty much set at this point for 2026. The rates for 2026 are probably going to be without the enhanced subsidies, what the Democrats are fighting for. Okay, let's continue.
Democrats are demanding Republicans renew the enhanced tax credits that help make coverage more affordable for millions of Americans. But Republicans are not budging from their position that any talk about health care will not happen until after the government reopens. The law's original subsidies will remain in place if Congress lets the enhanced version expire, but they cut off for people earning 400% above the poverty level, about $62,000 for an individual and $128,000 for a family of four. There is no such cap for the enhanced credits, so premiums for people above the 400% threshold have been capped at no more than 8.5% of annual income. Enhanced subsidies have been most popular with Americans in higher income brackets, including small business owners. If the enhanced subsidies expire, those people will have no financial help.
Well, these politicians sure do love enhancing things, don't they? I mean, especially during COVID. It was both Biden and Trump. Both Biden and Trump in their COVID bills. They were enhancing everything, enhancing healthcare subsidies, enhancing SNAP benefits, enhancing unemployment, enhancing tax cuts. How about enhancing some gun control? How about enhancing putting on a condom? How about about enhancing fiscal responsibility. But I digress. What was I talking about? Oh, yeah, enhanced subsidies. So the enhanced subsidies that the Democrats are fighting for tend to be more popular with people in higher incomes. All right, whatever. What are the enhanced ACA subsidies? When did they start? The enhanced ACA subsidies that we're talking about were passed in the American Rescue Plan in 2021. All right? No Republicans voted for it. Democrats passed it on a party line vote using budget reconciliation, which is a process to fact-track legislation that allows certain spending revenue and debt limit bills to pass with a simple majority vote in the Senate, avoiding a filibuster. All right? So all Republicans voted against the American Rescue Plan. Not that it matters, but 2 Democrats in the House voted against it, which were Kurt Schrader of Oregon and Jared Golden of Maine. They voted against the American Rescue Plan, Democrats. It passed in the Senate by a vote of 50 to 49. Okay? Once again, all Senate Republicans voted against it. Those same subsidies were extended through 2025 in the Inflation Reduction Act in 2022. Once again, no Republicans in Congress voted for the Inflation Reduction Act. In the Senate, it passed 51 to 50 with Kamala Harris, Vice President Kamala Harris, breaking the tie. In the House, it passed 220 to 207. Every Democrat voted for it, and every Republican voted against it. 4 Republicans didn't vote. Once again, the Inflation Reduction Act was passed on budget reconciliation. So why do I tell you all that? Just to tell you, this is a little bit more than Republicans just want to take health care away from people. This is Republicans never wanted to give health care to people in the first place. They never wanted to do this in the first place. Listen, they have not liked Obamacare from the start. They didn't like the subsidies that were in Obamacare from the start, from the giddy up. So now here comes Joe Biden and the Democrats in 2021. They enhanced those subsidies. Then they come back in 2022. They extend the enhancement of those subsidies. And they do it with budget reconciliation, basically taking out of play the filibuster and ending any debate on the issue. And so here we are now in 2025, and Democrats are saying, hey, you can't let that expire. We got to debate it. well, no, the Republicans don't. No, they don't. You didn't debate putting it into a bill. They're not going to debate taking it out. It's as simple as that. They took it out. This is the problem when government doesn't work together. This is the problem when we try and pass these massive multi-trillion-dollar bills on budget reconciliation. This is the problem. And I've been very consistent with that here. I said I didn't like it when Joe Biden passed bills on budget reconciliation. I didn't like it when Donald Trump passed bills on budget reconciliation, as he did with the Tax Act in 2017, as he did with this year's tax bill, passed on budget reconciliation with a simple majority. You don't need 60 votes in the Senate. You just need a simple majority. Now, a continuing resolution cannot be passed that way without getting into that, because I don't understand it. Even if I wanted to explain it to you, I don't fully understand it. But the type of bill they're trying to pass now, because it's discretionary spending, it has to do with discretionary spending. You cannot pass a bill that has discretionary spending in it, which is spending on defense, spending on education, spending on environmental issues, research, SNAP, things like that. You can just imagine how some of those programs would be butchered if one side or the other could pass things like that on budget reconciliation, where they didn't need the 60-vote threshold. You can just imagine. And so those things, that discretionary spending, you cannot pass with a simple majority. You need 60 votes. You know what it is, comparison group? Can I just tell you? You know what? I just wish, I'd be thrilled if the Democrats would just lie to me occasionally. Just lie to me. At least a lie would be an acknowledgement that you know something is wrong. Something is very wrong with this government. Republicans have no problem with lying. Republicans like, SNAP, listen, we'd love to continue paying those SNAP benefits to people, but we don't even know how we would do it. It's not even legal to do it. Republicans have no problem lying I just wish Democrats would have the decency to just lie to me. Democrats, when you and Big Pharma and Big Medicine, United Health are on the same side of an issue, something ain't right. Something ain't right. Big Pharma's like, yes, please continue the subsidies, the extended subsidies, the enhanced subsidies. Big Medicine, yes, please, subsidies, more subsidies, subsidies for everyone. How are you going to pay for it? How are you going to pay for it? I know, you've got me, you sold me, you care. Democrats care. Democrats care about struggling families. Republicans don't. I get it. Democrats are very generous with other people's money. Healthcare and education and housing assistance, food assistance. I mean, SNAP and WIC and CHIP and TANF and Head Start and Medicaid and Pell Grants and job training and heating oil and earned income tax credits. I get it. You care. You care. You're very generous with other people's money. How are you going to pay for it? Lie to me once. Just once. Don't say, we're going to tax the rich. Just lie to me once and say, if I say, how you going to pay for it? Just say, we're all in this together. We're all in this together. Just lie. A lie would at least be an acknowledgement that something is wrong. The budget, not the budget, the spending, the actual spending at the Department of Health and Human Services, the department where the spending for Medicare and Medicaid and all this stuff is for 2025, $2.7 trillion. In 2025 ain't over yet. We're pushing $3 trillion for that one agency. When it was $2 trillion a few years back, I was like, holy guacamole, $2 trillion. It's 2.7 trillion. In 2020, it was 2.2 trillion. In 2022, it was 2.5 trillion. In 2018, it was 1.7 trillion. We have gone up $1 trillion in 5 years. 6 years. Let's call it 6 or 7 years. As I said, I think we're going to hit 3 trillion. We're going to be pretty doggone close to 3 trillion by the time the year's over. So let's just call it, we have gone up $1 trillion in spending in one agency, Health and Human Services, in less than a decade. At least lie to me, Democrats, and tell me you have a solution, because that would at least acknowledge you know there's a problem. So this is where we are. This is what we're stuck with. Joe Biden passes bills on budget reconciliation, puts stuff in there he doesn't negotiate or debate with Republicans. They can't wait to take it out. Donald Trump passes the Tax Cuts and Jobs Act on budget reconciliation, and people call it the greatest redistribution of wealth in the history of America. It's all hyperbole. It's all hyperbole with no problem solving, with no ideas, no solutions, nothing. I don't even know why they feel like they got to talk about this stuff the way they talk about it. I don't know why the Republicans feel like they got to make this about illegal immigrants. I have no idea why they feel like they got to make this about health care for illegal immigrants. I don't know why they just can't say, you know what, not for nothing, we can't afford it. It was supposed to be temporary. They didn't negotiate it with us, and we can't afford it. We can afford the subsidies in Obamacare, the original subsidies, which we didn't like to begin with. We're not touching that. We're touching the enhanced subsidies. That's it. We can't afford it. I don't know why Republicans can't say that. I don't know why Democrats can't turn around and say, you know what, not for nothing, fine, but you're not solving the problem, because the problem is if you take health care away from people, if people can't afford health care, it doesn't stop them from getting sick. It doesn't stop them from going to the emergency room. So take the coverage away all you want. Somebody's still got to pay for it. Why can't they just say that? Why can't they just fight that way? Why does it have to be such extremism? Why does it have to be such hyperbole and everything? Such heated rhetoric? Well, how about eliciting a little logic, a little critical thinking here? Why don't we try that? As I said, people without coverage still get sick. They still go to the emergency room. they still become less productive members of society if they go bankrupt. No matter which study you want to agree with, whether it's 20% or up to 60% of bankruptcies have to do with medical debt. If you take a look at the studies, it could be as high as 60% of people who go bankrupt, they go bankrupt because of medical debt. You think that's good for an economy? No. People who can't afford high deductibles or out-of-pocket cost, you think that's good for an economy if people can't afford that? So Republicans just being Obamacare haters doesn't solve anything, but neither do Democrats by just increasing and extending subsidies paid for by the American taxpayer. Obamacare was supposed to bend the cost curve of health care, remember? More people covered, a healthier pool of people covered would allow costs for insurance and health care to come down. All enhanced subsidies do is put more money in the pockets of private insurers. Let's remember, that's who the exchanges are. That's who the marketplace exchanges are. They are private insurers. That's who the tax credits and the subsidies go to. Private insurers, which Democrats hate. They hate, but they're advocating to give them more money in the form of subsidies. The insurance companies don't want subsidies to go away. And they also don't want healthy people to drop out of the markets. They love it when healthy people pay premiums but don't get any coverage in return for it. They love it. So they don't want that. They don't want the cost to go up. And someone who's healthy who says, you know what, when it was costing me $100 a month for health care or health insurance, that was fine. But if it's going to cost me $180, I'll just go without. No one wants that. No one should want that. So the cost of health care is the problem and where our focus needs to be. Because over the last 20 years, including, of course, the time frame of Obamacare, when, as I said, we're supposed to be bending that cost curve down, over the last 20 years, the cost of health care has gone up. Drum roll, please. Ow. Banging on my chest. Up 188%. Overall, cost of health care for a family of four, up 188%. And that's been driven mainly by outpatient facility care and prescription drugs, which have grown in the past 20 years 200%. Outpatient care, prescription drugs, the cost up 200% since 2005. Please tell me outpatient care is not urgent care, because that was supposed to lower cost. You go to the urgent care, not the emergency room, to lower cost, right? Oh, okay, no. It looks like outpatient care, things like x-rays, doctor visits, MRIs, same-day surgeries, penis enlargement. Oh, no, that requires an overnight stay. What do you mean, how do I know? What was I talking about? Oh, yeah, the cost of healthcare. So the bottom line, all this bickering and finger-pointing and shut down pain and suffering for millions, it's all for nothing. It's all for nothing. How do we put up with this? How do we not look outside of our normal entrenched narratives on everything? How do we not seek out sources of information that will elicit critical thinking and logic and common sense and ideas and solutions and positive results? How do we not demand positive results at some point? Oh my goodness gracious. So let's wrap up with that. Discussing the upcoming elections for governor of New Jersey and mayor of New York City. Positive results. Who will win? Who will win, and will there be positive results as a result? Positive results. Yeah, as a result. In New York, we already know. Mamdani's going to win. He's going to win. It's a done deal. I guess the media needs to build suspense, and Democrats don't want a fluke because people stay home because they think it's in the bag, but Mamdani's going to win. If half of New York City stayed home, Mamdani would win. Cuomo ain't going to win. He don't stand a chance. In New Jersey, that one's tougher. But I'll give you my prediction, and keep in mind, I'm a 100% on my predictions. I'm 1 for 1. I called Trump over Kamala. So my prediction in New Jersey for governor is Chitterelli. I believe Chitterelli will win. Mikey Sherrill, she's had some tough commercials run against her. It's an even race, and normally an even race favors the Republican in a bluish or purple state. And anyone who isn't realizing that New Jersey is trending more purple is just living in denial. And I'm not talking about a river in Egypt. So Chitterelli in New Jersey, Mamdani in New York. Pros and cons? Well, in New Jersey, sure. You're going to feel like you have a Trump sycophant as governor. In New Jersey, may see a fair amount of gridlock and posturing with a Republican governor, but a Democratic state legislator. But at least for the next 3.5 years, there will be an incentive coming from the White House to make Chitterelli successful since he's a Republican. So that means not cutting off funds to New Jersey it means New Jersey not suing the Trump administration every other day, as they're just announced New Jersey is joining with 26 other states to sue over the announced SNAP benefits, not paying the SNAP benefits starting in November if that happens. So I don't know. If you're in New Jersey, do you really want that? Do you really want a Democratic governor fighting and at odds every day with the White House? Is that better than having a Republican who gets along with the White House, but maybe doesn't line up with everything that you believe politically? I don't know. What business of mine? Do what you want. Vote for who you want for there. New York pros and cons on Mamdani? Listen, listen to me here. I'm not here to burst anyone's bubble. If Mamdani can do half of what he thinks he can do, that would be good for the vast majority of New Yorkers. There's no reason for me to question Mamdani's motives any more than I would question Bernie Sanders or Elizabeth Warren or Alexandria, she calls it light of day savings time just to be fancy, Ocasio-Cortez. It was a long one. All progressives. I think they mean well, and I think they are justified in feeling the game is rigged. Of course. And so why not say, hey, time to try something new, time to break the status quo. I'm good with all of that. I swear I truly am. I'm good with all that. But ain't gonna work. I'm sorry. It's not gonna work. Not the way you want it to work. Because it's been done. It's been tried. It's been tried many times before. Honestly, it has. It's been tried before. No. Not what Mamdani wants to. No. Exactly what Mamdani wants to do. It's been tried in other places before. Give a listen to Margaret Thatcher. You'll remember Margaret Thatcher, the first female prime minister of the United Kingdom, nicknamed the Iron Lady. Let's give a listen to what she said.
I think they've made the biggest financial mess that any government's ever made in this country for a very long time. And socialist governments traditionally do make a financial mess. They always run out of other people's money.
Margaret Thatcher says the problem with socialist governments is they always run out of other people's money.
The essence of socialism is that you surrender quite a bit of power over your own life to the state. Well, we all do that to some extent, but of course it went much further. You pay very high taxes, and they wish to take even higher taxes because they think that politicians can spend money better than the people can spend it. The more you take away, the less there is for private industry, and that's where the creation of wealth comes. So you have to establish very clear limits on the role of government. And really, politicians, I think, should sometimes just be a little bit more modest about their abilities than they are. We can't run everything, and we shouldn't try.
Now, I'm certainly not naive enough to think I'm going to change a single person's mind on their view on capitalism, democratic socialism, or Mamdani or anything else. And I shouldn't have to, because people should be honest enough and aware enough. It's not who's right or wrong. I've heard people say this. When it comes to capitalism or socialism or democratic socialism, it's not who's right or wrong. It's the math. The math has to work. If the math doesn't work, it doesn't work. It's just very simple. If the math doesn't work, it doesn't work. I'll give you an example. Joe Biden proposed taxing ultra-wealthy people, anyone with wealth over $100 million. Okay? Anyone with wealth over $100 million. He wanted a minimum 20% tax. 20% of what? Their income, their wealth, based on, I don't know. Let's not even bother to try and figure out exactly what Joe was trying to do with that 20% minimum tax. Because you think of somebody like Oprah. Oprah is worth over $100 million, but she's known to have many houses, many cars, probably a private plane. But she's also known to spend $15,000 on a purse, $20,000 on a pair of shoes. She probably has a nice art collection. Does all of that count towards the wealth that you want to tax? Is all of that part of her taxable wealth? Who's going to appraise that every year? Things like that could change by the year. And so if that's the idea, and Bernie Sanders and Elizabeth Warren have both put forward ideas like that, taxing people's wealth annually. So let's just say they could. Let's just say they could do exactly that. Anyone making over $100 million. How many people in America, anyone with wealth, not making, anyone with wealth over $100 million? 11,000 people. Roughly 11,000 people in the country have wealth over $100 million. Let's round it up. Let's round it up to 500 million. Okay, so we can get an average, because 100 million, that's the minimum. That's the minimum. That's the basement. That's the floor. So we're going to round it up to 500 million in wealth so that we make sure we throw those 900 or so billionaires and their wealth in there. All right, fair enough. 500 million. So we got 11,000 people with a wealth value of 500 million, and we're going to tax them at 20%. That comes to $1,100 billion. That's how much tax you would get if you taxed 11,000 people with that kind of wealth. 20%, you would get $1,100 billion. You would just about barely be able to pay 1 year interest on the debt. That's it. That's it. It would cover 1 year interest on the debt and nothing else. You might come up just short, by the way. Interest on the debt currently is about $1,100 billion, but it ticks up every day as the debt does. So you might just come up short. You're definitely going to come up short next year because it's going to go up. The interest on the debt will be higher next year, and the year after that, and the year after that, and the year after that, which is why, as Margaret Thatcher said, sooner or later, you run out of other people's money. It just doesn't work. Simply taxing the rich just doesn't work. The math simply doesn't work. But I'll tell you what else doesn't work. And as we wind down, I'll work my way into, I got to give you my idea, my suggestion. If I tell you something doesn't work, I got to tell you what I think would work, right? So we're going to wind our way to that. But what also doesn't work is not correctly identifying the problem. The problem in New York City is not necessarily a housing crisis, an affordability crisis. That's not the problem. The problem is everyone wants to live in the same place. That's the crisis. There was this guy that moved to New York City. He moved to New York City to make it. He was going to make it. If you can't make it there, you can't make it nowhere. And so he's going to make it in New York City. And he pictured himself playing Frisbee in Central Park with his shirt off on a sunny day, sipping cocktails at trendy hot spots, enjoying a mocha frappuccino while sitting in a quaint coffee house reading the New York Times. That's what he pictured. The reality, he moved into an apartment with hookers giving blowjobs in the alley. Homeless people arguing with their own shadows. Stop following me, dude. Rats living in his walls. Houseflies, too fat to fly. They just walk around your house all day. And you're too exhausted from trying not to get robbed to get up and kill them. That's the problem. That's the reality. The problem isn't there aren't enough affordable places for people to rent. The problem is you go live there. You go live in those apartments. Nobody wants to live there. Everyone wants to live in the same place, the safer neighborhood, the trendier neighborhood, the neighborhood you're proud to tell people you live. That creates demand. That creates high demand that outstrips the supply. That creates an outrageous cost of living. So obviously, you have to make the less desirable neighborhoods more desirable. Now, you can do that with rent controls, no doubt. But there's still not enough supply to meet the demand. So you have to couple the rent control with crackdowns on slumlords in the less desirable neighborhoods. They got to clean up some of those places. Can't have rats running around on your walls. Who wants to live in a place like that? So you got to crack down on the slumlords. You have to partner with law enforcement to make the neighborhoods more safe. Not call the New York Police Department racist or anti-queer or wicked and corrupt and a major threat to public safety, as Mamdani has on social media. He's going to have to turn that relationship around quick, fast, and in a hurry when he becomes mayor. You need law enforcement to help you clean up those less desirable neighborhoods. If you can do that, perhaps you can spread out the demand. You can spread out the demand. If you can put some of those rent cost controls in place, in places where people maybe don't want to live now, but would live if there's rent control and there's less crime and there's less rats in the walls, well, now you spread out the demand. That brings the cost down everywhere. In some of those other places where people do want to live, but they can't afford. This is what Mamdani has to deal with. And he's going to have to deal with a whole lot of special interest groups that are determined to see him fail. They're determined that what he wants to do does not work. And in order to fight against that, the people are going to have to stick with Mamdani. That's the other part of this equation. You know how people are. People lose their patience real quick. People lose their enthusiasm real quick. They're real excited to get their guy in there. And then once their guy gets in there and everything doesn't change on a dime, everything doesn't just turn around immediately, they start to lose their patience. They can't do that. People got to stick with them. Even if he has to go and cozy up with law enforcement, even if he has to go and cozy up with Wall Street, even if he has to go and cozy up with capitalists to get investment into the city, to make sure people don't leave the city, to get development into the city. He's going to have to cozy up with those special interest groups that want to see him fail so that all of a sudden they're like, maybe we don't want him to fail. That's how you win. That's how you win, progressives. That's how you make what probably shouldn't work could work. That's how. It can't just be government. It can't just be some savior getting elected mayor and turning everything around. The people have to be involved in it too. And some of these people have to realize they need to coexist with the capitalist. It's New York City. You have to coexist with the capitalist. That's how it works. You can think of these people as termites if you want. The ultra wealthy, the Wall Street types, the developers, the real estate people. Think of them as termites if you want to. They will devour everything in sight if you let them. I have no doubt. They will devour everything in sight if you let them. So what can you do? You can't exterminate them. Let's all agree on that. All right? Repeat after me. You cannot exterminate them. And you can't exterminate them because you need them. Let's just say these are special termites. They're carbon capture termites. They pull carbon out of the air. They're good for the environment. So they serve a purpose. They help, but they're also destructive. So you got to coexist. You got to figure it out. Giving a greedy termite fresh wood to chew on does not solve your problem. Trying to starve them by switching everything out from wood to metal, that's costly and impossible, so that doesn't solve your problem. You got to figure out how to coexist. The focus should be on cleaning up neighborhoods, rent controls in those neighborhoods, thereby spreading demand to more areas and more boroughs. Yes, cheaper transportation, safer transportation, thereby spreading options for people to live further away from the most desired and convenient neighborhoods, thereby spreading demand. Not just government action, action from the people. I would live in a dishwasher box in Hell's Kitchen before I'd pay $4,000 a month for a 5,000 square foot apartment, but that's just me. I don't even know how 500 square feet can even be classified as an apartment. I saw one listed that said it was 10 square feet. Either that was a misprint or that apartment, you just stand and turn in a circle all day. Bottom line, I wish Mamdani the best as mayor of New York. I wish the best for whomever becomes the governor of New Jersey. I wish the best for whomever wins the race for governor in Virginia. I withhold my wishes for the proposition on the ballot in California regarding congressional redistricting. I'll see how that goes. And then I'll make my prediction on how it goes. Ooh, that's the show. That is the episode. Thank you so much for listening. Thank you, as always, for investing your time. I surely do appreciate it. Follow me, The Comparison Guy Podcast, on Apple Podcast, on Spotify, on YouTube. Hopefully have my dad in next time. It's going to be a good one. You don't want to miss it. You don't want to miss it. I'm going to let him interview me as if I'm a Trump supporter.
Slip inside the eye of your mind. Don't you know you might find a better place to play? You said that you'd never been, but all the things that you've seen.
You get that? I'm going to pretend to be a Trump supporter. And I'm going to let my dad ask me any question he wants to ask me, and I'm going to answer them all. I've guaranteed him I'm going to answer them all. So you don't want to miss that. Make sure you subscribe so you don't. And I thank you, and I will see you next time.